speaking on behalf of the humanitarian co-pen holders. I give the floor now to the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. We thank Under-Secretary General Mark Lowcock and Mr. David Lilly for their briefings. And we also thank the head of the Russian Center for the Reconciliation of the Opposing Sides, Major General Bakin, for his briefing on the latest situation on Syrian soil. I'd like to note that the information provided by the Russian specialist is reflected in the bulletins of the Russian Ministry of Defense on the de-escalation zones, which we regularly circulate among Security Council members. Mr. President, given the briefing by Major General Bakin, we are not going to speak in detail today, all the more so because just last week we discussed the humanitarian situation in Syria. At the same time, we are forced to note that the information circulated from the high rostrum of the UN Security Council sometimes contradicts operational reports coming directly from the areas of de-escalation, and this indicates attempts to politicize the Syrian humanitarian file. In general, it is time to stop applying double standards vis-à-vis what is happening in Syria. Mr. Lilly said today that the population in Idlib feels abandoned. They've not been abandoned. They are being held hostage by terrorists from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. We constantly hear about suffering in the Rukban IDP camp, while about Al-Hol camp, where there is a critical humanitarian situation, very little is said. We have already asked why the Council has not considered the situation when the so-called coalition wiped Baghouz and Hajin from the face of the earth. In the first quarter of 2019 alone, as a result of mass coalition airstrikes on Baghouz al-Fawqani in Deir ez-Zor province, more than 1,200 people were killed. Civilian infrastructure was destroyed, including hospitals and schools. All of this information is public. We can also, of course, once again recall Raqqa, which was literally razed to the ground. We've repeatedly heard and continue to hear from distinguished members of the Security Council appeals about the need to adhere to the Sochi Memorandum of the 17th of September 2018. We have not renounced from it, and that was confirmed today by the head of the Russian Reconciliation Center. The memorandum is being implemented. There, black on white, it says it is necessary to combat terrorist activities. We repeat once again, all hostilities are aimed exclusively at eliminating hotbeds of terrorism. And once again, we stress that the armed forces of Syria and the Russian aerospace forces are exclusively striking terrorist objects that have been confirmed by intelligence information. In that connection, once again, we call on the UN Secretariat and the organization's specialized agencies, including the World Health Organization, to not rush to publish unverified information. Data needs to be taken from reliable, non-politicized sources, and it must absolutely be re-verified, including to check whether the infrastructure that has allegedly been hit by strikes has been through the deconfliction process. Unfortunately, for the time being, we still have serious doubts over the reliability of these sources and the methodology used to verify them. Mr. President, we continue to be worried by the situation on the east bank of the Euphrates in the Al-Tanf area illegally occupied by the United States. I'd once again like to recall that the occupying power bears responsibility for the population on the occupied territory in accordance with the Geneva Conventions. And, of course, the Council should pay particular attention to the situation in Al-Hol IDP camp located in Hasaka province, which is not under the control of the Syrian authorities. Mr. President, in conclusion, I would like to underscore that the position of Russia remains unchanged. We will continue to make every effort to restore peace to Syria, both in our national capacity as well as a permanent member of the Security Council and a participant in the Astana Troika, within which more has been done than in any other format to de-escalate and eliminate the terrorist threat, to expand humanitarian assistance and to advance the political process. In the context of the political process, I'd like to note with satisfaction the level of cooperation that has been established recently between the Syrian authorities and the Office of the UN Secretary-General Special Envoy on Syria, Mr. Pedersen. We trust that the dialogue between the UN and Damascus will help to launch a stable, sustainable political process that is Syrian-led and Syrian-owned, with UN assistance in accordance with Security Council Resolution 2254 and the decisions of the Syrian National Dialogue Congress in Sochi. We call on all interested parties to pool their efforts to stabilize the situation in Syria, to together eliminate terrorism, to work on post-conflict reconstruction, and to help refugees and IDPs return home. Stepping up work in these areas will help to give a significant impetus to the efforts of Special Envoy Pedersen. Thank you.